In a meeting at the White House, US leadership underscored its long-standing relationship with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, balancing warm personal remarks with discussions on trade, defense cooperation, and global conflicts. The tone of the encounter blended friendship with diplomacy. While both sides praised one another, the underlying conversation revolved around military sales, energy politics, religious freedom, and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Opening his remarks, the US president spoke in unusually personal terms about his relationship with Erdogan. Trump said, "Pleased to be with President Erdogan of Turkey, and we've been friends for a long time, actually, even for 4 years when I was in exile. Unfairly, as it turns out, rigged election. He knows about rigged elections better than anybody. But when I was in exile, we were still friends. That's always a good way to find out, test of friendship. But he's a highly respected man. He's respected very much in his country and all throughout Europe and throughout the world where they know him." He went further, noting Erdogan's success in strengthening Turkey's armed forces. Trump said, "He's built a tremendous military, powerful military, uses a lot of our equipment, and it's an honor to have him at the White House." The American president added that the visit would include a big discussion focusing on trade and defense purchases. A major point of the talks was Turkey's interest in acquiring American-made fighter jets. Trump said, "We do a lot of trade with Turkey and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16, F-35 and some other things. And we're going to talk to them about that. And we're just going to have, I think, a very interesting couple of hours. We're going to get a lot done." This framing suggested Washington remains open to deepening military-industrial ties despite past disputes over Turkey's weapons programs. In a striking reminder of past diplomatic tensions, Trump praised Erdogan for helping secure the release of American pastor Pastor Brunson, who had been detained in Turkey. Trump said, "If you remember, he led Pastor Brunson. He freed Pastor Brunson. Pastor Brunson was put in jail for 35 years before I got there. This was a group that should have stopped it. And the president, after I called him, released him, which was a great thing for our Christian community, our evangelical community. The evangelicals really, really wanted that. I was very important to him, so I always remembered that. But he released him from 35 years in prison." The president went on to note that Brunson was now healthy, happy, and well, underscoring how the episode built goodwill between the two leaders. When Erdogan took the floor, he linked the timing of his visit to the anniversary of the United Nations, framing it as symbolic of the broader relationship. Erdogan said, "First, Mr. President, I am very pleased that this visit actually coincides with the 80th UNA, so I am very pleased to be here with my colleagues and friends. And as we have said during the first term of your presidency and during your second term, we are able to carry Turkey and US relations to a much different level and process. And as you've said, we have an opportunity here today to be able to discuss some of the issues regarding the F-35, the F-16, and also the HBA case. And we will have an opportunity to thoroughly discuss them. And based on what you have mentioned regarding the HAD school, we are ready to do whatever we can that falls on our part. And I will, when I get back, try to discuss this issue with the esteemed Mr. Bartholomos to discuss how we can move forward on that." The mention of Patriarch Bartholomew highlighted a religious dimension in US-Turkey dialogue, particularly concerning the Greek Orthodox community. The American president picked up the theme, referencing concerns raised by the Orthodox Church. Trump said, "The Greek Orthodox Church was here and they would really like to have some help. They need some help, and I said I'd mention it. We appreciate it." By directly raising religious issues, Washington tied broader cultural diplomacy into what is often a strictly security and trade-focused conversation with Ankara. The tone of the meeting was one of mutual recognition, though not without nuance. Trump said, "So this is a tough man. This is a guy who's highly opinionated. Usually I don't like opinionated people, but I always like this one. But he's a tough one. And he does an amazing job in this country. And we've had tremendous relationships, both having to do with war and having to do with trade. And I guess today we're talking about both." The words underscored a recognition of Erdogan's hard-nosed political style, paired with appreciation for his role as a partner. The US president then shifted to address one of the most pressing geopolitical issues, Russia's war in Ukraine. Trump said, I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues his rampage against Ukraine. And they've been fighting. They've lost millions of lives already. And for what? You know, for what? Disgraceful. He went further, emphasizing Moscow's economic struggles and condemning the ongoing violence. Trump said, and I said yesterday, let it keep going because their economy is absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's a shame that they're doing that, killing a lot of people unnecessarily. The president cited weekly casualty numbers to underscore the human cost. 7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so we ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. This passage framed Washington's expectation that Turkey, as a regional power with ties to both Moscow and Kiev, could play a constructive role. Beyond defense and war, the conversation repeatedly circled back to commerce. Trump said, we're going to make some great trade deals for both countries. We do a lot of business with Turkey. They build great products. They build beautiful, great products, really fantastic manufacturers, and we buy a lot from them, and they buy a lot from us. His emphasis on Turkish manufacturing hinted at a push to reinforce economic interdependence, even as political disagreements persist. The White House meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan was a mixture of personal camaraderie, tough geopolitical realities, and economic opportunity. It was clear that the American president sought to highlight friendship, drawing on past favors like Brunson's release, while also signaling expectations on issues like Russian oil and defense procurement. For Erdogan, the visit was a chance to demonstrate Turkey's importance as both a NATO ally and an independent regional power, with the ability to negotiate on equal footing. What emerged was a picture of two leaders who may differ in style, but who recognize the value of mutual respect, pragmatic cooperation, and the shared challenges ahead.